G'day there guys, it's your Aussie Hubby Markee, back at it again with another r/EntitledParents video. Now if you love me as much as I love you, you'd head on down to one of my new playlists down below and smack that subscribe and like button. Now with that out of the way, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn on the barbie, and get ready for some good content. Our first story was posted by user BadAlice13, titled, Hit in the Face for Having the Audacity to Ask a Parent to Control Their Child. I was talking to an old friend I haven't heard from in ages, and they brought up this story, so I thought I'd share it. I used to work at Dillard's in the child department, so I saw my fair share of entitled behaviour from our customers, but this happened to my co-worker. A customer was browsing around with her 4 to 5-year-old son. He was running around, knocking things off racks, etc. The mother made no effort to control him until he crashed into her a couple of times. She told him to go sit in one of the chairs by the dressing rooms. The chairs were pretty nice and upholstered in a silk-like fabric. My co-worker was removing garments left in the changing rooms, and as she passed by the little boy, she noticed he was pushing a small car, think Matchbox-style car, all over the back of the chair, and it was shredding the fabric. She spoke to the boy and asked him not to do that. He responded by blowing a raspberry at her and pushed the car with even more force. She went to the mother and said, "Your son is destroying the chair with his little car. Could you speak to him?" Which is way nicer than I would have put it. The mother stopped and stared at my co-worker. They stood there just looking at each other, for my co-worker described as too long and very awkward. Finally, the mother asked, "So?" My co-worker started saying, "Well, could you?" And before she could finish the sentence, the mother slapped her across the face with the hangers she was holding. So hard, it broke a hanger. Now, I would have beat the crap out of that woman right then and there. Job be damned. My co-worker just turned around and went to find our manager. She first encountered an off-duty police officer who worked security in the store, and is a close friend of mine, and told him what happened. He went with her to the manager. The manager went over to the mother, listened to her rant, apologized to her for the misunderstanding, and gave her 10% discount for her quote-unquote troubles. My co-worker was so stunned she couldn't even speak. Even the cop was saying, "WTF just happened?" The cop turned to my co-worker and asked if she wanted to press charges. Before she could answer, the manager interrupted, saying that wouldn't be necessary. Meantime, all the other employees in the department are watching all this go down, and I had just walked back in from my break. I see my co-worker has a huge welt across her face and is bleeding under her eye. My co-worker told the cop she did in fact want to press charges. The manager told her she couldn't do that if she wanted to keep her job. She told him that was fine, she quit. The manager was still insistent that the mother not be troubled by all of this. The cop said, "She could put her eye out, and I am arresting her. If you don't like it, you can't take it up with my commander." You can take it up, goddamn. The entitled mother was still acting smug until she saw the cuffs. Then she started screaming the usual nonsense. "I'm gonna sue all of you. I'll have your badge. Do you know who I am?" Etc. No one but the manager cared, and she still went to jail. All the other employees and customers who were watching clapped as she was being led out of the store in cuffs. The manager started in on the employees about how to correctly deal with situations like what had happened. We all look at each other, and without saying a word, we all clocked out and left. All of us. Good luck running the entire department by yourself. We hung around our injured co-worker until she was done with the police report, and then took her to lunch. She said she'd been planning to apply at a different store in the same mall anyway, but hadn't planned on quitting the way it happened, and worried that Dillard's would give her a bad reference now. We convinced her to go to the other right then, injured face and all. She explained what happened to the manager there. She was hired on the spot and told her they don't put up with crap like that. If a customer hits you, no matter who they think they are, charges will be filed and will be permanently banned from the store. I spoke to my cop friend a few days later, and he said the crazy woman nearly drove him insane with her screaming and threats on the way to jail, which wasn't close by the way. After she saw that wasn't working, She started with pleading and bribery. He said he didn't think he'd ever been so glad to hand someone off to booking. All this happened ages ago, and since that day, I've never stepped foot in a Dillard's. Screw them. Punch the manager in the face and say, "How do you handle it properly?" That would have been awesome. Also, what did they do with the kid? Someone came and picked them up, I'm assuming a grandfather. And Reason Reader says, "If I saw that as a bystander, I'd place that tramp under citizen's arrest and immobilize her forcibly if needed. That manager is a complete piece of crap too. You should have all gone over his head to his supervisor and said that either he goes or all of you do. Hear, hear." And our next post is by user RavenWolfPS2, titled, "Entitled parent won't send her disabled child to his day program on activity days because the providers get paid for having fun apparently. I work as a caregiver at a day program for developmentally disabled adults. Our center is open from 9 to 5, and we have our fair share of entitled parents, some of them being regulars. One of these regulars is particularly difficult to deal with. She will often park her car in the company van spots when dropping off her son, which in itself is entirely preventable because her son is supposed to be picked up en route in the morning, and most of the time they have to leave him because he's not ready on time. Mind you, her child is blind and wheelchair bound, so he can't get ready himself. She gets mad when a female staff member drives the van that picks him up or drops him off, because she doesn't think female workers are strong enough to lift him, although they've never had a problem getting him in or out. My supervisor is usually the one that has to deal with all the parents, so I'm actually borrowing this story for them. I don't remember the exact words of their conversation, so I will have to paraphrase how exactly this all went down. EM will stand for the entitled mother, and S will stand for my amazing supervisor, who had the unfortunate experience. We will call the son Tommy. S, phone rings, sees that it's from entitled mother, so picks it up and says, "Hi entitled mother, this is S. How can I help you?" "I have the calendar you sent with Tommy." "Oh good. Yes, it says here you're planning on taking Tommy to the theatre. The theatre is a paid outing, so we will need the money from you, as well as a permission slip. Did you get the other pages with the packet we sent out? There should be a paper with the costs of everything you can opt in for, and a permission slip." "Yes, I got all that. I have it here in my hand. I want to know how you are planning on paying for all of this." "Well, we get the money from the parents, and they each pay for their children individually. The cost of the outing is the cost of Tommy's ticket only. You won't be paying for any of the other members to go." "I'm not paying for his provider to go." Supervisor is taken back for a second and says, "You won't be paying for the provider, ma'am, just for Tommy, and that's all. The providers are paying for themselves, right?" "No, the company pays for the providers to go." "Why can't the company pay for my child to go then? Why do I have to pay for him?" "Because that's how this business works. We can't afford to send all of the members for free." I should add here that Tommy works one-on-one with staff members because of his needs, but other members have different ratios. We have situations where one staff is working with up to 4 members at a time. An entitled mother goes, "Then the providers should be paying for themselves. They should not be getting paid to watch a movie." Most of our providers can't pay for themselves. If we required that from them, most wouldn't be able to afford it, and we wouldn't be able to go to the theatre at all. The providers aren't there to watch the movie. They are there to take care of the members, restroom them, make sure they're safe, and help them have a good time. Well, I'm not going to allow that to happen. "Ma'am, the other parents are happy to give their child the chance to go out into the community and participate in the fun group activities. You can choose to pay for Tommy to see the movie, or he can stay back at the center while everyone else goes if you don't want to pay." "I'm not going to pay for your staff to go watch movies. Tommy will be staying home on days when everyone else goes to the theater," and hangs up. We also have a potluck at our workplace every other month, and entitled mother won't let Tommy come out on that day either. The staff members each bring in some food for the potluck, and everyone at the center gets to have some. The members are not required to bring anything. Entitled mother won't let Tommy go because she sees it as anyone who isn't pitching in is getting free food, and she can't let that happen. Edit. I feel like I should add that since Tommy is a one-to-one, if he doesn't come to the center and my supervisor can't find a way to shuffle people around in order to give them work, she has to call off one of the providers, and they miss work that day. Entitled Mother knows full well that this is the case. That's just sad. The worst part is we know Tommy loves being at the center more than anything. He started coming here less and less because of his mum's inhibitions about certain things and her inability to get him ready on time. My supervisor has to set the schedules, assuming he won't be there, so that if and when they call out, it won't cause any issues. So that has to be negatively affecting his education. Can't you ask his social worker to speak with the parents? What about the father? Is he in the boy's life? Unfortunately, since we're not classified as a life academy, learning center for disabled persons, we don't get as much control over these situations as we'd like to have. We can't consider habilitation goals a necessary form of education. It's pretty much out of our hands at this point. Terrible. I work in special needs public school. Our aides make so little. I couldn't imagine them not being able to come in just because their one-to-one is out. Some of the things I've heard from parents is really unbelievable, but I usually hear things that are linked to the inability to accept their child's full diagnosis. Why can't I just make their kid talk? Oh, how I wish it were that easy. Do you work with children? I feel like the functionability denial from parents is a lot more common in the elementary age children. By the time our clients get to our center, they're already functional adults, and their parents have mostly accepted their functionability. This, of course, causes its own problems when parents don't accept that their children are more capable than they're previously presumed. Edit. Also, we're caregivers, not therapists or pathologists. We work on goals with our members, but don't give them the same level of education or exercise as their therapists do. And she's clearly just wants someone to pay for him. She's willing to sacrifice everyone's happiness to save $10. More like $5. We go on a discount day and get discounted rates due to group prices. If she doesn't want to pay for the movie, that's perfectly fine, but she should at least let him go to the center on that day if anything. The state pays for all of that anyway. Yep, I agree with you. Never underestimate people and their spitefulness. And our next post by Shy Girl turned Sassy. Neighbors try to label me a prostitute because I was sexually active. I lived in Melbourne, Australia for about a year, 2013 to 2014. There I met a gorgeous same-sex couple, Brian and Derek, name changed obviously. They were both bisexual. They lived in the same building as me, on the floor directly above mine. I soon entered into a sexual relationship with both of them. We would have threesomes and sometimes gangbangs. Besides the awesome sex, I also became really good friends with them and we're still in touch. It was tons of fun for all involved. Among my neighbors were a middle-aged couple with 2 children. They lived right across the hallway from me and were quick to judge us after seeing Brian and Derek exiting my apartment early in the morning on more than one occasion. The woman, Karen, asked me in the elevator what I was doing with those 2 gays, quote unquote. I politely told her it was none of her business. When she kept on pestering me, I told her, if you must know, I'm friends with benefits with them. Now leave me alone. I still remember the look of shock on her face. I don't think she expected me to reply so brazenly. When I told Brian and Derek about this, they shared their own experiences in dealing with them. This couple was rather homophobic too, and had tried to talk to the property manager about the slurs moving into a building with families and children. They were told to screw off, or freak off, just not in so many words. But anytime either or both of these guys were in the elevator with them, or ran into them in the parking lot, the husband, let's call him Todd, would stand between them and his kids while giving Brian and or Derek angry looks. Must have been trying to prevent their kids from catching the gay. Lol. In the weeks that followed, the entitled couple continued to give me the stink eye anytime they saw me. I just smiled back at them sweetly, which ticked them off even more. On one occasion, their teenage daughter said good morning to me and tried to make small talk, before her mother dragged her away by the arm, while berating her for talking to that woman. Interestingly, their kids seemed very well behaved, and nice, and I truly felt sorry for them. My next door neighbours, another couple with kids, with whom I got along with very well, later told me that Entitled Mother had tried to get them to file a noise complaint against me. According to Entitled Mother's logic, since I shared a wall with that family, they could probably hear all the ungodly noises coming from my apartment, and they should complain in order to protect their children. The nice couple told them they would do no such thing, as I had never bothered them, and they had never ever heard any such noises come out of my apartment. One night, Brian, Derek, and I decided to have a foursome that would involve us and Brian and Derek's friend Dean. The next morning, Dean asked if he could come back to my place with me, as it was a Sunday morning and Dean was hotter than hell, so I agreed. As he and I were walking down the hallway to my place, Karen was just getting out of hers. She saw Dean and I smiling and talking, and his arm around my waist, and approached me, asking angrily if I was being a tramp and selling my body. I told her she was insane and asked her to kindly frick off. Later that day, I received a call from the property manager. She wanted to let me know that Karen and Todd had complained that I was a prostitute and that it was dangerous for their children to be in the same building as me. They told her in great detail about how I was bringing home different men. The property manager had gotten to know Brian and Derek quite well, and had an inkling that I was friends with them. So she contacted them and told her all about the entitled parents' crazy behavior and accusations, and that the man they had seen me with was a mutual friend, that there was no prostitution going on. The property manager dissuaded the entitled parent from filing any sort of false complaint against me, as it would cause a world of trouble for them. I thanked that kind lady and later had a good chuckle over it all with Brian and Derek. The blatant harassment from Karen and Todd had stopped, but of course, the hateful looks continued. On one occasion, when we were in the elevator together, Karen tried to make a pathetic attempt at shaming me by condescendingly asking if I was going to have any men over that night. What she didn't realize is that shame about my promiscuity is something I'm entirely incapable of feeling. I proceeded to tell her in great detail about all the sex acts I was going to engage in that evening. I mean, she's the one who asked, right? After this fun little interaction, she and her husband avoided me completely. Good times. I would have just said, ask your husband. Then the neighbors would have really had to file a noise complaint on account of her banshee-like screams. Lol, what an entitled brat. Also, what trouble could you get into, may I ask? Here in Australia, prostitution is legal, although whether it is street walking or brothel work varies from state to state, just like here in New South Wales, both are legal in Victoria. Probably thought she could get me kicked out for being ungodly. Did you ever know that you're my hero? Thank you, that's sweet. And I Love Desi Girl says, you would have no complaints if I was your neighbor, only applause. I would have been jealous. 3 hot guys? Dang, my kind of party. Oh, this wasn't a party. Our parties had way more people. Winky face. And for the life of me, I don't understand what someone else's decisions have to do with personal salvation. I find things fascinating, and I try not to stare, offend, or ask questions. I'm still learning about gayness, etc. I had no idea 2 gay men in a relationship would have sex with a woman. Things can be fluid, which is good to know. I would love to see the parents' faces when you told them. Probably so against it because it's also extremely intriguing to them. It's causing hot nightmares. Ho ho! They were bisexual, both of them, as I fairly clearly stated in the post. Oh, come on, that's what they're going to react to here, not the rest of it? I wonder if they were having some hot and juicy nightmares, who knows? And our next story by Sabertooth Diego. Got screamed at by a mum after I wouldn't let her kid pet my service dog. Happens today. I'm at the movie theater to see Onward. I have a service dog, a very large German Shepherd. His vest is navy camo and made out of my old uniform. Very clear do not pet patches. Kid, like 12 years old, ran at my dog and tried to pet him. I blocked his hand and said, "Don't pet him." He asked why, and I said, "You should never touch dogs you don't know." I tend to say this rather than "don't touch service dogs," because in general, you should never pet a dog you don't know. And frickin' entitled mummy came screeching out of frickin' nowhere. "Don't tell my child what to do." I told her, "So raise him better," and walked off with my dog while listening to her scream. Fudging hell. So raise him better. This is what normal people to psycho parents with no boundaries. They don't stand there while the psycho screams at them and threatens to call the police. Yeah, I've never understood people who just take crap. And I've got a classmate who is absolutely fascinated with my service dog and always tries to pet him without asking. Another classmate said they'd be happy to take him if I ever couldn't. People be weird, mate. Why can't you pet service dogs? Just curious. They're focusing very hard on doing their jobs, and petting them is distracting them. More importantly, a service animal is an accessibility tool like any other. As an analogy that might make sense, you wouldn't grab someone's glasses from their face and play with them. And our last post is by user Copper Hope, titled, 3 kids for 5 hours for $20. Sure. I got told to move this year from Am I the A-hole? So first things first, I'm a nanny and my rate is $20 an hour. Low for this area because I'm a student. I live in New Zealand where the minimum wage is $17.50. I work for a wonderful family with one 7-year-old child who I love to work with. My aunt knows that I work as a nanny and has her own nanny. She messaged me on Thursday night, telling me she's in blind and needs someone to watch her 3 kids, who are 2, 5 and 7 years old, the next morning, and is begging me to do it. So I ask my boss if they're okay if I'm watching her kids as well, and my boss is fine with it. I message my auntie to say that I can, and I'll do it for $60. She needs me to watch them for 5 hours. She throws a fit, but seeing that I'm the only one who can, she relents and says she'll pay. The day comes, and juggling 4 kids was a challenge, but I handled it with mild threats of duct tape. Her husband comes home explaining that he thinks 60 is too much for a 1, and offers me 20. I stand firm that I needed it to be 60 and that I won't back down. He complains for about 20 minutes before giving up and paying me $60. They're now going around the family saying I was a total tramp for not doing it for free, because they're my cousins and I'm already getting paid by my boss. This is driving me crazy, and I've gotten angry phone calls and texts from everyone else that side of the family, except my mum, who thinks she's being a nutjob. The reason she needs me to come in when she had her own nanny was a scheduling conflict, and she got called into work. She had contacted other family members, and they refused to watch her gaggle of brats. Mr. Rifle is my friend. Yikes. Says, "You actually saved him quite a bit of money. So what's his problem? A regular babysitter could have charged them $20 per hour per kid, so it would have cost them $300. Next time, get the money in advance, or you're a no-show." Also, him trying to welch on an agreed-upon deal was a total dick move that could have ended up in court. Hell, in some circles, he could have ended up at the bottom of a river, especially in New Zealand, not gonna lie. Tell your family to knock it off or you'll block them. Well, you just found out that the entire family, minus your mum, are entitled jerkwads. Block them all from contacting you, and then rejoice that they will now have to rely on one another. They deserve it. And you provide the service, you set the market rate. It's a total jerk move to try and negotiate a lower price after the work is done. P.S. Waving across the Tasman from a Sydney beach. Aw, that's wholesome. Alright guys, that's all I have for you today with r/EntitledParents. Tell me what you think of it down in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Any and all takes would be, much more than welcome. I love what you guys are up to. I love what you stand for. Buff Helpy, keep flexing. Lady Tenor, keep doing what you do. And everyone, just have a great day. I miss you, Grandma Nancy. And I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.